Hello everyone and welcome back. In this week's video, we're going to put the 25 ACP through its paces into our FBI ballistic gelatin testing. If you go back through some of our previous videos, you see we did this to 32 and all kinds of different calibers. And if you're so inclined, you might be able to sort of compare how the 25 ACP does with the 32 family and those sorts of things. I'm mildly curious about how all of this is going to go. All I've heard is that if you shoot somebody with this 25, he might be angry at you. That's actually a sort of a contorted quote from Colonel Jeff Cooper. I'm not sure that's true. So what we're going to do is always use the same firearm for the interest of consistency in testing. I'm going to use the Beretta Jetfire. It's the one I'm most familiar with. If you saw in the last video, I got a bunch of examples out, but we're going to give this guy a try with not only jacketed hollow point from Hornady, 35 grain XTP, a Federal punch, which you can see here, and then just a normal range round, and we'll see how things go. First round we're going to use is from PMC, 50 grain, as you can tell, full metal jacket. Typical range round for the caliber. I'm going to use the interesting little feature on the Jetfire, which is the tilt barrel. Just because, once again, as we mentioned prior, the sighting system on these guys is a little tricky. It's more of a suggestion than a sight. So you can see here on the camera where my finger is where the round actually stopped. So far, I'm going to get out my tape measure. It penetrated 11 inches, sort of just under the FBI standard, but we're going to go put some more ammo in the gun and see what happens. The next demonstration, we're going to use the Federal punch round. It's designed sort of, they call it I want to be correct, jacketed solid. This one is 45 grain. So once again, tilt the barrel, put this little critter in here. Try to keep my fingers away from the end of the barrel, right? Slide lock once again. So after no small amount of searching, right here. So what you have is 12 and a half, 13 inches. It's about right here. So it did, by 1 inch, exceed the FBI standard with, of course, dressed ballistic gel. Another thing to keep in mind, our gel is 15%, not 10. So I would say, based on that, it has just adequate by FBI standard. The next round is the 35 grain Hornady XTP. As I mentioned prior, in theory, the jacketed hollow point should not penetrate as much. We'll find out. So, at Matt's suggestion, we kept the round placement over to the right edge, which, of course, you can see at home right now. Interestingly enough, it penetrated just about as doggone far. It certainly, as I mentioned, didn't look like it expanded a whole great deal, perhaps a little. I'll dig it out and see when we get back home. But for measurement's sake, it's about 10 1/4. So less for sure. Depending on how you see the world, that may be a good or a bad thing, but from the looks of things, I would rather have the penetration. One of the things worth mentioning is if you can pay attention to these pencil lines right here, it doesn't produce a lot of cavitation into the gel block, which would be very advantageous related to stopping power. They're relatively the same. You can see this one bulged out right here just a little bit because, as you can see me touching it, it's that close to the edge. Down the middle, that probably wouldn't happen. So, said differently, the entry cavitation for hollow point as compared to any other round appears relatively the same. So I've moved our gel block down to about the 20-yard mark or so. Just mildly curious to see how much penetration we'll get with a jacketed hollow point at that distance. All of that presupposing, of course, I can actually hit the gel block, so there is that. Once again, sites that are mere suggestions. I saw the block move. Should be a hit. I did hit it. This is a prior hollow point entry from 10 feet. This is one from 20 yards. So even at a fair distance for that little gun, it doesn't affect the performance that much. In previous videos, we've put a stopwatch and done a little bit of a mag dump to see how controllable certain guns are. I must tell you, the size of this platform is going to make this probably not a super accurate demonstration. I don't shoot guns this small, but I'll do my best to stay on a relative amount of accuracy. The magazines hold 8, so if you put one on your tilt barrel, you could get up to 9. I have 8. I have some steel set up at a relatively safe distance. Once again, for 8, if this doesn't go well, I apologize in advance. It really is not my bag, but here we go. Okay. Well, can't say much about the stopping power, but it's certainly not a reliable. Let's just bag it. Unfortunately, because our Beretta Jetfire wasn't running very well, we're going to switch over to one of the Colts to try and test the shootability of the Colt. Hopefully, the gun will function better than the Beretta on multiple shots. So here we go. Much better. Interesting demonstration about the perceived lack of power of 25 ACP. It barely passed, in some cases, the FBI standard, but it in fact did, and it did it at 20 yards. Now at the end, right now, I can't tell you whether there's something wrong with the Beretta Jetfire or it just doesn't like Hornady or Federal ammunition. I have a feeling it's something mechanical going on with the gun because it won't function on anything. Typically that means a trip to the gunsmith is in order. When I put the same ammunition in the Colt, she ran great. And you can tell when you grab the Colt, it is of superior quality. It's just heavy, everything seems to work right. And interestingly enough, it actually has a magazine disconnect, which I think was probably fairly rare for the time it was made. Anyhow, I hope you guys have enjoyed this practical demonstration of the 25 ACP. It's been a lot of fun to put together, and don't be afraid to like and subscribe.